provided by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis, based on the most relevant posts on LinkedIn about go-to-market strategy in CW2223. Frennis is a B2B market research company working with enterprises to optimize their campaigns with account and executive insights far beyond AI. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of insights and unpack them to give you that shortcut to being well-informed.
Hi there. Today we're really diving deep into the top go-to-market strategy trends popping up on LinkedIn, specifically from calendar weeks 22 and 23. You're essentially getting the distilled wisdom from leaders who are, actively shaping the future of GTM right now.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And what really jumps out looking at Thomas Allgaier's summary is this shift away from just piling on more features.
Right.
It seems GTM leaders are now focusing much more on building these really disciplined operating systems. So our mission today is explore 3 core themes we saw. First, getting that data integrity right before you even think about AI. Second, how to really orchestrate demand using signal-driven playbooks. And third, adopting targeted product upgrades that actually turn insight into pipeline.
Okay, so let's jump in.
Right. So if GTM is fundamentally shifting, where's the starting point? It feels like lots of leaders on LinkedIn are zeroing in on the need for clearer, more disciplined frameworks and operating systems, less reactive tactics, more solid foundations. Let's unpack that.
What's really interesting is how much weight is being put on just getting the core plan right. Instead of chasing every new shiny object. TK Cater, for instance, he highlights this one-page SaaS growth plan for CEOs. It's all about the actual math to reverse engineer your goals.
The math, okay.
Yeah, asking 4 key questions to figure out what's genuinely broken in your GTM, and then making some really tough calls on what to stop, start, and double down on.
Brutal decisions.
Exactly. He really hammers home the point. You probably don't need another feature. What you need is an executed GTM plan.
That's such a powerful distinction, isn't it? Execution over just planning. So what's a practical first step for someone listening? How do you actually move from plan to disciplined execution like that?
Well, it really starts with that ruthless prioritization Cater talks about.
Yeah.
That stop, start, double down thing. It's not just talk.
Right.
It means actually cutting out the noise, the distractions, and focusing only on the activities that directly hit those goals you reverse engineered.
Yeah.
It's about shifting the mindset.
From features to operations. Makes sense. And Jonathan Metric seems to echo this, right? Sharing advice from GTM operating partners.
Yeah, they tell founders, nail product market fit first. Seriously.
Meaning actual paying customers.
Paying customers, repeat buys, people saying good things.
Yeah.
Then you think about scaling marketing or sales, not before. Oh, and they also say, delegate everything except your unique superpower.
Build the foundation before the skyscraper. Got it?
Absolutely. And if you sort of connect that to the bigger system view, Spencer Perrick's take on a 2025 GTM strategy really emphasizes signals, precision, and orchestration.
Okay, signals, precision, orchestration.
Yeah, over just adding more tools incrementally. He actually mentioned cutting quite complex tools like Outreach.io and ZoomInfo because they didn't quite fit their new signal-based approach.
Wow, cutting ZoomInfo and Outreach, that's bold. Why? What did tools like Clay and Relevance AI do differently for them?
Well, they're not just your standard CRM or sales tool.
Yeah.
They're built to listen for very specific real-time signal.
Like what kind of signals?
Things like maybe a prospect interacts with a competitor's blog post, or a target company announces funding, or they hire a key person. Tiny things. And these tools help automate the exact right message for that specific timely trigger.
Ah, so it's about being super relevant right when they're listening.
Exactly. Parikh sees GTM as this living, evolving system, not just a static playbook you set once a year.
That's where it gets really interesting for me, because it's not just the tech. Will Klosowski shared something about what makes sales easy. And it's focusing on the benefits to the client, not just your tech or your service. He advises educating clients with genuinely useful content, actually getting into the comments where they hang out.
Engaging properly.
Yeah. And properly training your SDRs and sales teams to have deeper conversations, not just pitch. Plus, building real strategic partnerships feels like a shift towards a much more human GTM,
It totally does. And that connects straight into operational alignment. Manja Zivkovic, he talks about a shared GTM operating system that starts right inside the buyer's world.
The buyer's world?
Yeah, like what's changed for them, what problem they're trying to solve right now. He suggests sales, marketing, CS, product delivery, everyone needs to co-own the ICP clarity, the positioning, the plays.
So ownership, not top-down.
Exactly. And he pushes for a really fast, 45-day GTM loop to stay agile, Make the plan a living thing, not just a slide deck gathering dust. That speed is key today.
A living document. I really like that phrase, constant tweaking. And Alper Yurter had this Bill Founder Build framework. Sounds similar.
Kind of. It's also about making the unknown known. Building trust and credibility first, through content, through the founder's own brand, making the product genuinely desirable before you hit the accelerator on demand gen.
Right, build desire first.
Yeah. He sees too many companies obsessing over tools instead of trust, or just scaling wildly without a clear why. How vital is that trust phase before you ramp up, especially in B2B?
Oh, it's everything, isn't it? Without trust, you're just noise. And Luigi Millardo, drawing on his experience scaling Wafu, he actually predicts most AI startups will fail on GTM, not their tech.
Wow. Because of positioning and efficiency.
Exactly. Strategic positioning, efficiency-first growth. And Mark Stauss takes it even further, almost framing GTM as like an enterprise-wide risk.
A risk. How so?
He warns that messing up GTM isn't just bad marketing. It leads to massive capital misallocation, lost opportunities. He says leaders have a fiduciary duty, basically, to get GTM right, to understand its network effects. That's a pretty stark warning.
It really is. It's not just a departmental thing. And that ties straight into what Mark R. highlighted. Alignment is critical.
How critical?
Well, misaligned GTM teams. Twice as likely to miss revenue targets. But fully aligned teams. 2.3 times more likely to exceed them.
Whoa, that's a huge difference.
It is, and like Sangram Bajor puts it really simply, GTM is the business, the whole company.
So why is alignment still such a persistent headache for so many organizations?
You know, often it boils down to a lack of a truly shared vision, shared metrics. Teams get stuck in their silos, right? Optimizing for their own little world instead of the overall GTM outcome. What these experts are saying is, make the buyer journey the absolute single source of truth that every single department owns together.
Okay, so we talked about frameworks, alignment, operating systems, but underpinning all of that, it sounds like, is data. Where do we even start there?
Well, it forces you to ask a really fundamental question.
Yep.
How good is your data, actually? Reese Babo puts it bluntly. GTM leaders excited about AI. First question. What's the quality of the data in your system of record? Because beautiful AI reports are totally useless if the data feeding them is trash. Simple as that. All the boring stuff, deduplicating, enriching missing fields, checking employment details, that's basic CRM hygiene. It's step one for any AI project.
Right, the unglamorous groundwork.
Exactly. And Ed King reinforces this, urging teams to build a data firewall to stop bad data constantly polluting the GTM database.
Yeah.
It's defense first before you can think about offense.
That's a really critical point. So this boring stuff, does it actually lead to cool applications? Any interesting use cases coming out of this data focus?
Oh, absolutely. Henry Schuck shared a really smart one. Using ZoomInfo's GTM Studio to identify website visitors who are actually marked as closed lost in the CRM.
Ah, old deals coming back.
Exactly. And routing them back to sales for follow-up. That's not just cleaning data for tidiness. It's directly using clean data to find and revive pipeline that was just sitting there, dormant.
Super smart. And this seems to feed into what David Turvitz described about modern GTM systems integrating all bound.
Yeah, combining inbound and outbound effectively. It relies on clean CRM data, but also leverages proactive GTM signaling.
Okay, what kind of proactive signals are we talking about? How does that make outreach better than just, blasting emails?
We're talking real-time, high-intent signals. Things like using scrapers to track weekly industry news, or discussions on Reddit where prospects are asking relevant questions.
Like finding them where they are?
Precisely. Or tracking new product launches from a target account, funding announcements. The idea is to engage people exactly when something relevant is happening for them, making your outreach timely and genuinely helpful, not just another generic pitch.
And it's not just internal or intent data, right? Alon even made a strong case for measuring brand.
Yeah, he basically said, if you're not measuring brand, you're missing pipeline, which is a big statement.
Why? What's the data behind that?
He cited stats showing 80–90% of buyers already have vendors in mind before they even talk to sales. And 77% say brand familiarity builds trust. So his advice is, measure share of voice, share of search, run brand lift studies, add self-reported attribution, actually understand your brand's impact.
Why do you think brand building often gets sort of sidelined as a measurable GTM lever? It feels fuzzy sometimes.
Well, historically, it was harder to measure directly, right? But these newer techniques are changing that. Plus, I think many GTM teams are still maybe overly focused on just bottom-of-funnel lead gen stuff. They miss how crucial brand is in shaping those early-stage decisions, especially when buyers do so much research on their own now.
That makes sense. Your brand has to do the initial work.
Exactly. It builds that trust before sales even gets involved.
But even with all this data and brand focus, there are still weak spots. Todd Busler's research on closed and lost re-engagement, that sounded pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a bit shocking, actually. He found 30% of closed lost opportunities see literally zero sales activity for 18 months after they're closed.
18 months, wow.
And yet, get this, 36% of customers who eventually did sign started out as closed lost deals. It's just a massive amount of potential revenue being left on the table.
Just sitting there, so what's the fix?
Well, this is where innovation is happening.
Yeah.
He mentioned Champify's Insider AI. It tries to unlock that hidden pipeline by analyzing first-party data stuff already trapped in your CRM notes, call transcripts, past deal info.
Using the data you already have.
Exactly. Trying to prevent that revenue leakage by revisiting past interactions more intelligently.
Okay, so moving on to AI itself, it feels like it's everywhere. But what's it really doing for GTM beyond, just speeding things up a bit? Is it more fundamental?
I think so. Cindy Fiorella-Rojas had a great take. AI didn't kill marketing, it just made it smarter. And crucially, it shifted power to the buyer.
How so?
Buyers now self-educate, self-validate. They often show up knowing 80% of what they need before they even talk to a human. So modern GTM has to be built around how buyers actually buy. Marketing becomes about acceleration, not just making noise.
Acceleration, not noise. I like that.
Yeah. And Yusuf Murad added that truly AI-native companies, they're using AI for way more than just productivity tweaks. They're using it to fundamentally scale their GTM. It's a redesign, not just optimization.
Interesting. Vikram Ekamaram was wondering why we see so many top-of-funnel Gen AI use cases. And he thinks it's all about the data, needing these agent builder solutions. Can you unpack that a bit? What are agent builders doing?
Yeah, think of agent builders as like orchestrators. They let you connect lots of different data sources, CRM, marketing automation, external intent data, web data.
All the disparate sources.
Right. And then you set up these intelligent AI agents to process all that info, spot patterns, and trigger specific actions automatically. It basically automates really complex, data-heavy work that used to take tons of manual effort.
Freeing up teams for strategy.
Exactly, for the high-value human interactions.
And we're seeing tangible applications emerging from this, right? Yamini Rangan from HubSpot announced that deep research connector with ChatGPT. What can people actually do with that?
Well, it allows for some pretty sophisticated analysis of customer data that's rich with context. So, for example, a marketer could instantly get a list of, say, VP and C-level leads who opened a specific email but haven't had any follow-up activity scheduled.
Identifying gaps.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Or a sales leader could get a quick summary of why their high-potential deals seem to be stalling based on all the interaction data. It's about turning scattered data points into clear, actionable next steps almost immediately, not just another report.
Right, immediate action. And Andrew Riesenfeld saw Mary Meeker's latest AI report as a wake-up call for GTM leaders.
Yeah, basically saying, you need to prioritize AI now. It's not a future thing.
The impact is happening fast.
Definitely. And Jonathan M.K. summed it up well. Top GTM teams are using AI strategically breaking down silos, capturing insights, turning random acts into repeatable, orchestrated workflows. He even quantified it, saving reps 3 10-hours a week, potentially leading to 50% shorter sales cycles.
50% shorter cycles. That's huge.
Game-changing numbers, really, not just small tweaks.
Okay, so beyond the internal systems and the AI, what about looking outwards? Partnerships, efficiencies. What's working there?
Well, Adam Schoenefeld shared some really impressive results from Tyler Calder and the team at PartnerStack. They achieved, get this, 34% lower pipeline cost and 58% higher value pipeline.
Wow.
By basically nailing the fundamentals. Really precise account selection, intentional account engagement, and rigorous account measurement. It just underscores that quality beats quantity every time. True efficiency comes from focus.
Focus. And Brent Swank had a really important point specifically for the SMB market.
Right, the small and medium businesses.
Yeah, he advised GTM teams targeting them to really realign their strategy around what SMBs actually need. Immediate ROI, simplicity, cost-effectiveness, trust. Not the usual enterprise talk about scalability, but SMB is really that different?
Oh, absolutely. They just don't have the luxury of long, complex sales cycles or tricky implementations. They need to see value fast.
Quick wins.
It's exactly. Clear value, straightforward solutions. Trust is huge. Pitching long-term scalability often just doesn't land with them.
That makes sense. And H. Levesque reinforced this whole precision idea, saying, smart companies start with their buyer, not their product. Vague targeting just leads to missed messages, long cycles.
Right. He emphasized prioritizing ICP deep dives to find the real triggers that make people buy. That's how you get predictable revenue.
How do you find those real triggers, though?
It's about digging deeper than just demographics, actually talking to customers, analyzing old deal notes, understanding their day-to-day challenges, watching their behavior, not just with your product, but in their whole business context. And Cal Prince added a pretty stark number to this.
Oh, yeah.
He said 1 in every $3 spent on GTM is essentially wasted.
A third.
Yeah, wasted due to a lack of precision in actually understanding customer behavior. That's a massive inefficiency.
That is staggering. And Louis Fernandez drove home a similar point for SaaS, arguing success hinges on recurring impact, not just recurring revenue.
Moving beyond transactional thinking.
Exactly. Focusing on expansion, retention as the real growth engines, building a GTM model designed for compounding value over time. It's the long game.
Totally. It shifts focus from just bagging the customer to actually nurturing them, turning them into advocates, growing that lifetime value. And, to kind of wrap that efficiency theme up, Alexander Essner reminded everyone that case studies and testimonials, they're like your secret GTM weapon.
Social proof.
Absolutely. Crucial assets everywhere, website, sales decks, even fundraising. It shows how efficiency is also about smartly leveraging your existing wins to build trust and fuel future growth, making everything compound.
So if you enjoyed this deep dive, just a reminder that new episodes drop every 2 weeks. And definitely check out our other editions covering field marketing, channel and partner marketing, AI and B2B, MarTech, and account-based marketing.
Yeah, looking back at these LinkedIn insights from the past couple of weeks, it really hits home that GTM isn't some static playbook anymore. It's truly a dynamic, interconnected system. And the organizations that seem to be winning are the ones really embracing data integrity right from the start, focusing intensely on precision in their outreach and building that holistic buyer understanding, all orchestrated, of course, with smart use of AI and strong partnerships.
Absolutely. It really makes you pause and think, doesn't it? How much of your GTM spend is truly precise? And how often are you really, truly listening to your buyers during that self-education phase they go through? Something to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration into the world of strategic B2B marketing.